X-Men. Get it!
Hey everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Battle of the Atom. This is your weekly X-Men podcast where we rank every story from A to Z.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Zach. And Adam, you know how this is the week of a new James Bond movie?
It is. Last Daniel Craig one. No Time to Die.
So you think there's no time to die? I think that the world is not enough for me. And
Okay.
the world is not enough for Vulcan, is the thing. You know Vulcan, the third Summers brother?
Yeah, he's that like slobby, kind of like almost teenager-y kind of guy that's hanging out at the Summers house on the moon, right? That's Vulcan.
Yeah, he gets high with all of his friends and just is having a good old time. And in the spirit of Vulcan hanging out with his friends, we couldn't talk about Vulcan without one of our friends. You may know him from writing and editing on Comics XF. You may also know him from editing on Comic Book Herald. It's Vishal Gulapalli. Vishal, how are you today, bud?
I'm doing pretty good. How are y'all?
Well, I am pumped to talk about X-Men in space.
That's called Moonraker. That's Moonraker. That's the James Bond one. It's the Moonraker one.
I was gonna try and bring in a "you only live twice" thing here, but with Krakoa.
Oh, I like that. That's good.
I mean, I feel like Krakoa is more of a die another day situation.
You're right.
Oh boy, you are just pushing that bit too far there, Mr. Zachary. I could see the wheels spinning in your head. You're thinking of more James Bond.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think of what James Bond stuff would be too far. Like,
I think if you wanted to call Excalibur on Her Majesty's Secret Service, that'd be too far.
that would be very too far. I was gonna say that Octopussy was probably too far for the franchise's naming conventions, even though that's Ian Fleming title. Like, I feel like that probably is them saying, okay, listen, probably a little much here.
Well, it's in keeping with what we're going to talk about today because Vulcan is a little too much, wouldn't you say?
I think Vulcan's a lot. Vishal, what's your, just in general, you were actually recently on a podcast, the Cerebrocast, by a friend of the show, Connor Goldsmith, that talking about one of the Summers who some people say is too much, Cable. How do you feel about Vulcan though?
Yeah.
Because you're a Cable guy, and I know you have
big
some
Cable guy, yeah.
you have some Summers love. So what's your Vulcan feelings?
Deadly Genesis is maybe my least favorite X-Men comic.
Okay.
Is where I would say Vulcan stands with me.
Fair.
I do like him in the Hickman X-Men, though. That's some good stuff.
Hey, want me to tell you a dirty little secret, Vishal? We're not talking about that today. We're not talking about that. We're going to talk about the bad stuff. We're doing the bad ones.
Oh, no.
I think we did Deadly Genesis in our second episode, if I'm remembering right.
Wow.
It was either our second or third episode.
It's actually not that low on the list, honestly. Like, it could be way lower.
We've said the list has flaws. The list has a lot of decisions that I would have made differently had I been looking at it now. And I know, Adam, there are things you would do differently, but we can't look at the past. We've got to live and let die here, and we've got to.
Stop.
And we've got to look at this list.
We gotta
that
play
came to
our
us-
cards like we were Gambit at the Casino Royale. Like, just
Okay,
get them all
I think
out.
you did stretch. You stretched that one, but I I did want to say that this list comes to us from Russia with love, from friend of the show, Patreon supporter, Derek McElroy. If you want to be like Derek, you can go over to patreon.com/comicsxf, and that supports the high-quality comic book journalism that you can come to expect from this family of products. Yeah, go check it out. It's really great. I like the website. There's cool things. Go do it. Anyway, Derek had a request, and it's the first story we're going to talk about. It is a 12-part epic.
Oh boy.
Uncanny X-Men 475 to 486. The Rise and Fall of the Shi'Ar Empire. This is written by Dad Comics expert Ed Brubaker, with pencils by Billy Tan, and some fill-ins by Clayton Henry.
Yeah, how you guys feel about Billy Tan?
He is every early mid-2000s artist rolled into one.
He does seem to have a lot of those quirks, doesn't he? You know, just
I see Tan as someone who, like, he has a lot of Silvestri in how he does it, and part of that may be Danny Miki's inks, but it's not as his anatomy is not as tight.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a huge fan of Billy Tan in any of these. However, I think the larger problem comes from Frank D'Armata's colors. Which are a weird mix of super washed out and really shiny.
That shiny thing is weird, right? Like, this extends all the way through, I think, the Deadly Genesis era, where, like, every character kind of looks embossed a little bit around the edges. Like, it's a weird technique.
It's not one that I care for, and it's one that really... It makes this book a real slog to get through. Brubaker, I give him a hard time because, you know, he writes comics for dads to buy at airports. In more power
and
to him.
Also me, who is not a dad.
Oh, Vishal, I've known you for long enough to know you've got some big dad energy in you.
Thank you.
You have some of that kindred spirit with dads of the world. Regardless, Brubaker, not my favorite on big epic sci-fi stories. I don't think that's a crazy sentence.
I would extend that to not my favorite on the X-Men.
Oh,
just
no,
hands down.
Yeah, I think it's like pretty clear just from the number of issues that this story is that it could easily have been told in about half as many issues. We should probably give a quick distillation of this plot, because this is an interesting era of X-Men where we have a very sort of strange lineup. We're getting away from Earth, and we have sort of Professor Xavier's Vulcan hit squad here, where they're going to go try and, what? I guess... Do they know Lilandra is alive at this point? Do they think she's dead?
No.
They know
she's dead.
No.
I don't know.
At this point in continuity, because I was thinking about this as we were reading it, this is actually, to the best of my knowledge, the first Shi'Ar story since Imperial from the Grant Morrison X-Men.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
So there's a lot of references.
So this is right, you know, in Shi'Ar times. This is right after Cassandra Nova hecked up a lot of stuff, and then Lilandra said, "Hey, you're not gonna be my consort anymore."
So our lineup here is very unique. It's a bunch. Xavier's on the outs with Cyclops at this point, so he pulls together a team of people who,
due to Deadly Genesis,
right? Obviously, like once you
they don't explicitly say it for a while. Actually, Xavier's just kind of like, Scott doesn't trust me, and I didn't remember Deadly Genesis happened right before, so they just kind of skirted around the fact that Xavier mind wiped Scott of the existence of his younger brother, who he presumed dead.
Yeah, and
right.
It is kind of wild that the two of the people on this lineup are people that were involved in that Krakoa story, we have Havoc and we have Polaris recently unvillainified, I guess. Alongside,
Yeah, out of the Blood of Apocalypse stuff.
right. We also have Warpath, Darwin, who gets some fun moments throughout this thing to actually do stuff. Nightcrawler, always dutiful, and Rachel, who is coming off of having her entire Summers clan being assassinated by the Shi'Ar secret. What are they? The secret guard? What are they?
The Chancellor's Guard
Yes,
is, I think, what they call
the
them.
super secret bad guys, and they'll come back later this episode.
The Imperial Guard that does a lot of assassinations instead of just,
protecting,
coups.
The Chris Bocciolo designs that we get other people to draw for a bit.
It's okay because they pop up a couple of times. They are incredibly Chris Bocciolo designs, and these people are really struggling trying to figure out how to make them work in any sort of realistic art.
For sure. So we definitely take some time here for Vulcan to, blow some stuff up. I mean, he's basically on a quest. He has no idea that Daken is like not dead, but like comatose. So he thinks he's off to like kill Daken for, to take revenge against Daken for everything that he did to him. That's not how this plays out. Daken actually is, before Daken is brought. Wait, what takes place first? Because he rescues Deathbird, right?
So what happens? We're not going to talk about the X-Men stuff because frankly, the first 6 issues of the X-Men stuff is they go to space.
Yeah,
that's
not exciting.
That's all that happens.
Yep.
It's a waste of time. But what Brubaker does is he splits it two parts for the X-Men stuff and then a Vulcan solo story essentially. So the X-Men
that's where Clayton Henry comes in to draw as well.
Right.
He draws all the Vulcan stuff.
Which I don't love Clayton Henry's work, but I think he's a better artist on this book than Billy.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
But so Vulcan runs in. It's a Shi'Ar story, so he runs into the Imperial Guard. He gets thrown into prison. Some people who want to see the Mad Emperor Daken's reign restored break him out of prison if he'll break out Deathbird. Him and Deathbird hook up. Deathbird's like, I would like to not be queen, please. Can you just let my brother do it? I want to be evil. And he says, but I don't like your brother. She says, that's fine. I don't like my brother. He can still be king, so I don't. And then you can be powerful. Long story short, they want to get married at the Imkron Crystal.
Yeah. I hear they're taking reservations.
Guests. Yeah, they want to have guests. So Professor Xavier gets captured, and his execution is going to be part of the wedding ceremonies.
How romantic!
Listen. A Shi'Ar wedding without at least 2 deaths is considered a dull affair.
It's not a bad plan, Just if you're Vulcan and you need some entertainment, it's not terrible. Hey.
I mean, Daken doesn't like Xavier. Deathbird doesn't like Xavier. Vulcan does not like Xavier.
Hey, we also failed to mention the additional member who joins the X-Men here, and that is Corvus. We got to talk about
Vishal,
Corvus.
do you want to explain Corvus?
We do have to talk about Corvus because he makes out with Rachel a bunch, and it's never good.
Oh, it's so
Rachel's
weird.
hella gay, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's accepted that.
She's so gay. Yeah.
New costume for Rachel includes the early 2000 hip huggers. Somewhere in this episode, in the stories we read, she is like, man, I wish I could wear sweatpants. And I'm like, what? Just wear sweatpants. Like, you could superhero in sweatpants. I wouldn't judge you.
Yeah, honestly, everyone's outfits during the months-long space trip kind of implies that they either have one outfit that they watch regularly or they have 7 of the same outfit.
Neither option is good here, is the thing.
No, they're not.
But, yeah, the X-Men run into a former Shi'Ar prisoner named Corvus Rook Shi'Ar, who has the Phoenix Sword, which is a sword that isn't possessed by the Phoenix, but is possessed by the memory of the Phoenix. And it makes Rachel Gray just horny as all get out for him.
I hate that. See, Corvus by himself, I don't really hate. He's basically a Final Fantasy character. He has this giant sword, he has a spiky haircut, and he just shows up and he's like, yeah, we used to call the Phoenix the Falcon.
Okay,
And
but that is continuity. That's from X-Men Spotlight on the Starjammers.
And we
Oh my god.
and we have a piece of him in my sword, and a piece of the piece is gonna like go back to Rachel because it's like, oh, let me fly home to the Phoenix host. And I hate that they're like flirtatious and whatever. It doesn't add anything to the story, but I don't like have anything against Corvus. He's just a stupid like video game character that shows up in the story.
There's a story waiting to be told with Corvus Rook Shi'Ar as, like, I don't know, Cloud Strife of space. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
you could do that.
Easily.
Wait, no, what's Zack's last name from Final Fantasy VII? Because that's what he looks like. He looks like a bird version of Zack from Final Fantasy VII.
I don't know.
It's not important. Spoiler alert.
It's fair, just for the record.
You're right. Spoiler alert. Zack Fair is not you. Is what's important in Final Fantasy VII.
We also get the Starjammers.
Anyway. Yeah, they
Right?
show up and they don't do enough. Like, that's the thing. I don't actually like the Shi'Ar. I think the Imperial Guard are neat. I think the Starjammers rule. Starjammers are great.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, it feels like they kind of showed up just so that, like, what's her name?
Hepzibah?
Can't remember her. Yeah, Hepzibah could fall down back to Earth at the end of it.
Yeah, because what ends up happening...
And she's there for a while. Like, she's in Messiah Complex. She's, like, around.
She is there... Is she there through... She's there through some of the Utopia stuff.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly when she leaves,
Is
but,
she
like,
there
yeah,
on-
Greg Land drew her.
Is she there until, like, right before Regenesis? Because that's when
yeah.
they get the rest of the team.
Isn't she there through Bastion?
That's when they end up. Oh my gosh, she's there too long.
Yeah. Well, the other
She
reason
is.
the Starjammers are there is so that this like ragtag group of space X-Men basically then become the Space Jammers for a while as this story progresses. That's not really in this particular arc. This ends with Vulcan taking his revenge on Daken and becoming the new emperor of the Shi'Ar because he's now married to Deathbird. So
He doesn't kill Xavier, who gets his powers back after M Day, and he does
Because
kill...
of the Mcron crystal.
Right, whatever. Who cares?
Because he goes into the Mcron
you're-
crystal and comes out fine.
If you're gonna commit,
Yeah.
to depowering Xavier and Magneto, then Ed Brubaker, you can't bring them both back with powers during your very short time on the X-Men. That's not fair.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But what does happen is that Corsair gets murder killed by Vulcan, who's very mad. Which is
That's the actual reason the Starjammers show up, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it is, because he has to kill his dad to show that he is truly, truly too far gone to do anything but be evil. Which, I mean, you kill the coolest guy in space, I'm going to be mad at you. So Lilandra's disposed. She's hanging out with the Starjammers, as is her usual. Vulcan's emperor. It's all a bad story. Half the X-Men get sent back to Earth to say, well, that was a weird time we just had. Let's ignore it. And then Havoc and Polaris and Rachel, they become the new Starjammers because the X-Men don't kill? Question mark? I don't know. I saw Messiah
But the
Complex
Starjammers
right after
do.
this. Yeah.
Hey, Messiah Complex ends with Cyclops saying there are no X-Men, which is him saying we can kill everyone now. Don't worry about
that. I mean, Ed Brubaker did write both of those. This is the same editorial.
Oh, I also do want to mention, though, a very, very weird scene when Vulcan's in prison and he's, like, talking to, like, a manifestation of his childhood self who's like, I did the math and I figured out how old you are. You're 15 years old.
Right.
Which, okay, he's acting like a teenager, sure. But then he gets married to Deathbird. So, I don't know what's going on there.
If the story committed to the idea that he was, like, just this angry teen boy, I honestly think it would be better than where it goes, which is being like, look at him, he is a powerful leader and the emperor. And it's like, no, you're just drawing him like a generic 20-something superhero whose motivation is rage and nothing else. Like, at least give us bad teen Vulcan. That's what Hickman's doing. He's making him just be like this guy who's crashing on couches and getting drunk all the time. I'm down with that. And then he's sad, like all teen boys really are.
I mean, later on in this episode, I think that the character's being written a little bit more like that, as sort of like this petulant child. But you're right, Vishal. It is very weird that they establish that he is aged up as part of his enslavement and then has to, marry an adult for purposes of, ruling. So you mentioned Deadly Genesis. Why don't we look at our giant big list here and figure out where this particular arc belongs on it?
Yeah, so we got a really, really, really big list. In fact, there are 558 stories on this list, with the number one story being The House of X, The Powers of 10. The 100th story being X-Force Assault on Grey Malkin.
Love that one.
It's a good one. It's the 100th best one if you haven't been paying attention.
It should be number one,
Wow.
but,
Wow.
It does have that part where they throw Cruel off of a helicopter and just, like, leave a note on him.
Mm-hmm. It's got Greg Capullo and X-Force. What more do you need?
It's great. It's classic.
I need it to be just slightly shorter and just all as good as issue
Just
19.
stop.
That's fair. Okay.
Number 200 is Madripoor Knights. Now I'm going the wrong way. Oh no. Number 300 on our list is Weapon X, 17 through 21. Sabretooth's in charge that time that Omega Red got a baby tiger. Number 400 on the list is The Hunt for Wolverine, Weapons Lost, and also the bookend stories because we were lazy and did not want to do those separately. Number 500 on the list is New Mutants 7 through 12, The Ties the Bind. That's the one where Rain hooks up with a student. And then the Draco's at the bottom. Where's Deadly Genesis at?
It's at 380. Pretty good showing
Hey,
for Deadly Genesis, all things considered.
I don't know if that's shockingly
That's
high or if there's just...
obscenely high.
Okay, but I am also looking at what's below it, and I'm starting to think that X-Men is bad.
There are a ton of bad X-Men, and there's a lot of stuff worse than Deadly Genesis.
I mean, I feel like the one where Cypher is addicted to the internet is better than Deadly Genesis, but you do you.
So, Vishal, is this better or worse than Deadly Genesis?
So, I'm leaning worse, honestly, because this is twice as long, and Deadly Genesis commits to this idea that Xavier is terrible, and this doesn't. There's a lot of like, oh no, Xavier's right, like, we shouldn't kill people, and then he leaves, and it's like, Havoc goes, we're not the X-Men anymore, so we can kill people, but it's portrayed as this, like, I don't know, bad decision or, like, angry decision he's making, rather than, like, yeah, we don't have to listen to the jerk anymore.
Zach, better or worse? What do you think?
I mean, I think Vishal's right, but I do think these are roughly in the same territory.
Mm-hmm.
Like, at 397, we have those issues of Uncanny X-Men from right before this, where Alan Davis and Chris Claremont turn Rachel into a dinosaur.
Is that better or worse than this? I feel like that's worse.
It's probably a little worse.
Yeah, but I feel like that What If issue, Legion killed Magneto, is better than this.
I do too. So do we want to slot this in as our new number 397?
Great place.
All right. Just under 400 is Uncanny X-Men: The Rise and Fall of the Shi'Ar Empire. I do know that multiple people that I am friends with started reading X-Men with that comic.
Wild. That's crazy.
So it had
I mean,
some heat.
it makes sense. It's got all those, like, you know, titles on it because it's part of that new era where every book was like, oh, you got to start here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great branding on the outside. Wait, one quick thing before we move on to Emperor Vulcan. Is it weird that the Shi'Ar Empire neither rises nor falls?
I mean, they kind of fall when their empress gets deposed, and then they immediately fall again when their emperor gets killed.
So it should be the fall and the fall of the Shi'ar.
Yeah.
But then Vulcan rises.
So it should be the fall
Vulcan
and...
does rise, and he is the Shi'ar Empire by the end
So it
of
should
it.
be...
The fall and rise sounds accurate.
Yeah, okay. They just got it backwards. Well,
Because it's not about how the Shi'ar Empire has grown into this thing. They don't even talk about the wedding between Cathari and Shira or whatever.
Yeah, it's mentioned elsewhere. I forget which of these stories does give like a quick synopsis of the Shi'ar gods.
Cathiri and Shara. I'm
Yes.
sorry, I mixed their names up. Just like Adam, while reading this, has mixed up the next stories that we are going to do, and hopefully you can remember which one this is, Adam, because we're going to be talking about X-Men Emperor Vulcan.
That's what I said.
Written by Chris Yost. Paco Diaz does the pencils on this one.
Didn't I say that? I could have sworn I said Emperor Vulcan.
Yeah, you did.
Jeez
You said
Louise.
Emperor Vulcan. I don't know what Zach's talking about.
Man, I know we were
I'm talking about half the time either.
I know we were criticizing Billy Tan, but the art is noticeably worse in this particular miniseries, man. This is
Really? You don't like Paco Diaz here? I don't love him.
I thought he was better than Billy Tan, but worse than Clayton Henry.
interesting.
I think that's probably where I'm at too.
You know what's weird with all these artists? Like on certain pages, their art's fine. Like there are certain things they draw really, really well, and then you get to other things like I don't know if it's certain poses or just like angles of faces or certain scenes, and it just falls apart. You know. So I don't know. I was not much a fan of this artwork, I guess. Especially the way Deathbird is drawn, like with little feathers holding up her boobs. It's weird.
Yeah, the boob feathers for Deathbird. That's an odd choice. Now, Vishal, let me ask. Chris Yost, is he I know he's a guy that a lot of people have a lot of strong feelings about. Is he someone that was particularly influential in your comics reading, or is he just a guy that did write a bunch of comics?
He was a guy who wrote a bunch of comics, and they were mostly decent, is where I land.
I think that's right. Listen, the dude's got that MCU money. He's got that Mandalorian money now. He's doing fine.
Yeah.
Did you know that the L in Christopher L. Yost stands for Lee? As in, his dad named him after Christopher Lee.
Wow.
I love
That's
that.
pretty great. I like that. Speaking of things that are named after other things, we get to know a new alien species, the Macron, in this miniseries. Who knew that there was an entire alien race devoted to the Macron crystal? I guess they were like kind of living with the crystal, and then the Shi'Ar stole the crystal. What's the backstory here?
Okay, so the backstory that we are given, and it gets revealed slowly. So it gets start. They are called the Macron, or the Mcron, or however you want to pronounce it. They are called the Skyartal, which apparently translates to death to Shi'Ar, which makes sense. As much as the Shi'Ar Empire is our friend a lot of the times, they are a colonial, like very wicked imperial power that forcefully bonds other cultures to their own, and it's not great.
All of these stories make the Shi'Ar just seem terrible. I mean,
They are
absolutely
the antagonists is the problem.
awful. So what's the deal with these guys? They got their world blown up.
they were on the planet where the Mcron crystal was, and then the Shi'Ar wanted that planet, and then they went into dark space or whatever, and then came back and tried to murder the Shi'Ar by dropping suns on them.
That part's pretty cool.
Pretty cool. Yeah.
I don't like. Here's the thing. I always remember, like, I wasn't a big Star Wars extended universe guy, but I always kept trying to remember or reading things about them. They were like, yeah, so these Imperial guys just made a better Death Star, and they keep doing that, and then they're like, let's make a big Death Star that's a whole planet, or let's put a bunch of Death Stars on Star Destroyers, and they're all bad plots. And I don't know why you couldn't do something as cool as, hey, let's teleport a sun onto a planet, see what happens. That's a cool way to blow up a planet.
It is pretty neat, like that they just like shoot stars at planets and watch them blow up. I mean, very genocidal, but it's still pretty neat.
As far as genocides go, I think it's a neat way to handle it.
Yeah.
The story's weird though, Vishal. I mean, what are our Starjammers doing here?
I can't even remember because I can't tell the difference between this series and Rise and Fall, quite honestly. I think the Starjammers are like leading some sort of insurrection against Vulcan's reign, and they're like attacking his military outposts and supply chains and stuff, and like staging a war.
Mm-hmm.
But they actually
that sounds like
don't
what
they
they
have
were
to
doing.
team up with Vulcan and the Imperial Guard to defeat these guys because
Yeah, the Skyartal show up, and Havoc's like, hey, these guys might be cool because they hate the Shi'Ar, and we hate the Shi'Ar right now. And then they blow up a planet, and Havoc's like, oh no, these guys aren't cool. They blew up a planet.
They killed billions upon billions of people.
Yeah, they specifically dropped 2.4 billion as the number that were on that specific planet.
Havoc's a lot of things, but he is someone who's going to see a genocide and say, so we're not going to team up with them.
Mm-hmm.
He then teams up with Vulcan, which is a weird choice that I don't know why the story makes.
I mean,
the whole story's bizarre because you get a lot of, like, Havoc is, like, angrily convinced he's going to murder Vulcan, and then Rachel is angrily sobbing about the fact that she wants to kill the Shi'Ar Chancellor's death squad, whatever, because she remembered that they exist now.
yeah, they show up in one scene and she's like, hold me back, you know, but
Yeah.
that gets followed up on later finally. But yeah, everybody kind of is like in these weird uneasy alliances, and then Havoc at some point does burn Vulcan's like face off, gives him a nice,
Oh yeah, so
nice
so
fun
you know
scar.
how Havoc's solar powered?
Yes,
Well, Vulcan tries to throw him at a sun,
doesn't work so well.
and then
Yeah.
Havoc's like, you may be Omega powered, but I literally have an entire sun in me right now, so I'm gonna shoot you real good. Vulcan does not care for that. Havoc does end this book getting captured and thrown into prison, along with most of the Starjammers, and Vulcan wins. Which then, flashback billions of years, we find out that actually the Mcron were not the first people to be on the Mcron planet, and in fact are colonizers themselves, in a really weird coda that I don't think adds much to this. It's just,
And we've never seen them since, as far as I'm aware.
yeah, it's like, I understand what Chris Yost was trying to do there. I think maybe he could have just not. I think he could have let people just be mad for good reasons instead of bad reasons. I don't know.
I can understand why an artist wouldn't want to come back to these characters, though. They all have the same sort of shield-like face, and it doesn't look easy to draw. You know, it sort of has these H.R. Geiger style like plates on them, but it looks like it would be a kind of a pain to draw these characters over and over again. Plus, they're not that interesting. You know, like unless you're the elder is like the one like super strong one. The rest of them are all kind of just in between sizes, and they all look exactly the same. So it's not that exciting. So, I mean, I think we covered it. I don't think this is like much of anything, except it's just kind of like connective tissue between what we just talked about in the first story and what we're going to talk about in the third story. So I don't think this is as good as what we just read with the Brubaker stuff.
Really, I think it's just less actively bad than the Brubaker stuff.
Okay.
I think I'm about exactly there, where I would say, like, okay, what right below it is X-Force and Cable Annual number 95. Which one is that? Because if that's the one I think it is, then I don't know what I'm doing with my life. That's not the one I thought it was. I thought this was the... No, it is. That's the one where they go to the beach. And it's not what you want, but it's still good. No, that annual is better than this. I think that's fair.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that Bloodline is probably better than this too, even though that's pretty bad. How about the first appearance of Adam X the Extreme?
I mean, I'm looking right below that, and I see you have the end of the original New Mutants run, which I also think is better than this.
Yeah, I'm working my way down now. You know what I mean? Oh boy.
Enemy of the State's better than this, I think.
Yeah.
Enemy of the State's also not good, but I do think it's better.
I don't think it's
This is better.
as like disconnectedly bad as Muir Island Saga.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I like the right above Muir Island Saga. I like the ideas that get introduced in the Five Lights better.
Okay. So you want to squeeze it in there?
Yeah, we'll squeeze it right on in there at our new number 414, Emperor Vulcan. Where did we put Kingbreaker?
Did we do Kingbreaker?
Yeah, we did Kingbreaker.
Yeah, Kingbreaker's the one where Havoc's like in jail and slowly absorbs solar power.
Oh yeah,
right?
he absorbs an entire sun. Yeah. Okay, Kingbreaker is rightfully
that.
above both of those stories. We're good. That's at 338 right now.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I'm glad we saved this third one chronologically for last, because I think it's the best of the three. What is this one, Zach?
Yeah, you'd never read this, Adam. I was actually a little surprised.
I have not. This is outside of my, because this is a core miniseries, but there was a large crossover event around this, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, the War of Kings is like kind of the center of Abnett and Lanning's cosmic saga.
Mm-hmm. So
it's a big messy war where the Guardians of the Galaxy and Nova just kind of like flail around terrified of what's happening. It's great.
So Vishal, correct my memory, I can't remember. Are you a big DNA like cosmic guy?
Yes.
Okay.
Big fan.
So do you want to give Adam and anyone who may only read X-Men comics a glimpse of what this epic is? Because I think it has a lot of the same things that people like in X-Men comics in this like multi-year epic.
Yeah. So similar to how like the Shi'Ar have always been linked with the X-Men, and so Vulcan takes over the Shi'Ar, and it's like a mutant is leading the Shi'Ar. The same thing kind of happens to the Kree, who have their own dealings with the Inhumans, where Black Bolt finally says, you know what, we're better than you. And he kills the Supreme Intelligence or whatever, and he takes over as leader of the Kree. And says, we are further evolved than the Kree race, so I'm going to try and uplift all of you to the levels that the Inhumans are because we're great. And War of Kings is, those two empires that have recently been usurped by very relatively like upstart races coming to head because Vulcan's just the worst, and quite honestly Black Bolt and Medusa aren't far behind.
They are terrible.
It was always interesting.
Medusa is awful.
It was always interesting to me reading, because I had read War of Kings and the DNA stuff before like all the Inhumans stuff hit with X-Men, before I had a reason to hate them. Mm-hmm. And what I liked about the characters at the time is that the Inhumans were often very wrong, and like they played an antagonistic role even if they weren't outright villainous. Like they were played as heroes with a different set of code, or a different code than everybody else. that allowed them to get into fights with them a lot. In War of the Kings, it's interesting, that you say that two big realms were thrown off, and that's part of what had happened as the entire Marvel Cosmic area was thrown off from a couple of events in the previous years with Annihilation and Annihilation Conquest, which directly, like, you can read starting from the Annihilation stuff in 2004, 2005, and run all up to like 2009, 2010, and get like one set story about Nova and the Guardians of the Galaxy figuring out how to put all of these weird space politics together as empires rise and fall. And War of the Kings is very interesting because it is like it's the pivot point. Because Annihilation Conquest was co-written by Abnett and Lanning. Annihilation wasn't. They did, I think, one miniseries in it, maybe.
Yeah. They wrote the Nova miniseries, then they wrote the main event for Conquest, and then War of Kings is when they took over everything, because while this miniseries is going on, they were also writing the Guardians of the Galaxy ongoing and the Nova ongoing, which both crossed into this a lot.
Wow.
The Guardians of the Galaxy ongoing, which is the reason solely that we had a Guardians of the Galaxy movie.
Even though this version of Guardians of the Galaxy is not what you see in the movie.
It's
a lot of the same team. They're just serious instead.
Yeah,
it
the
doesn't.
tone is weird.
What's interesting is that the team that appears in the main series of War of Kings, actually, besides like Major Victory, is kind of the movie team. Like Bug's not doing stuff in this. Phyla isn't doing stuff in this. Moondragon's not hanging around. The only person who's not is Star-Lord because he's off doing miniseries stuff.
Well,
like you got Groot and Rocket and Drax.
That's true.
That's what you need.
That's true. So just to clarify, not only are we ranking just War of Kings, but we're also ranking the issue that leads into this with the same creative team, Secret Invasion War of Kings, which basically sets up Black Bolt taking the Inhumans off.
It does rise and fall of the Shi'Ar Empire, but in one oversized issue instead of 12 really long issues.
Right. So that's the lead up. We learned that the Black Bolt they thought they knew was a Skrull, and now Black Bolt launches Attilan into Kree space and takes it over. Right. Pretty much.
Yeah. Now it's important. We should mention there is a consistent creative team over these 7 issues. It's Dan Abnett, Andy Lanning, and Paul Pelletier, who I want to take a second because we've been harsh on the artists, and we could be harsh on the cover artists of War of Kings because
Brandon Peterson is rough.
Oh boy.
Brandon Peterson looks like an early PS2 video game on these covers, and the PS2 was an old system at the time, so it's very weird that that's his point of reference.
Well,
but go off, King.
I had to message you to make sure that it was the same Brandon Peterson that I remembered from Executioner's Song, and it was just shocking to me that these were the same artists because
Yeah, he took a hard pivot into CGI at some point in the 2000s, and he's never recovered. His art is all like this now.
I don't like it. What I do like, and I like a lot, and I want to give a ton of compliments and accolades to, is Paul Pelletier's art in this with Rick Magyar doing the inks. I think it's incredible. There's this weird, it's this nice blend of like a Mark Bagley type style, but also like hints of a Dale Keown almost in the way in which he draws faces, and all of the characters look like different people. They have different silhouettes, they have different expressions. Like it's very, very good art. As I kept flipping pages, I was like, wow, I really like this, especially as you get to like the climax of this story, which is, we'll get to it, but it's crazy. But I'm assuming you guys liked the artwork as well.
A lot, yeah. Pelletier, he did the Nova series until Guardians of the Galaxy started. He did Guardians of the Galaxy until War of Kings started, and he was basically like half of why those books became cult favorites at the time and why Abnett and Lanning were able to do so many events over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's just so good at what he does.
Yeah, it's outstanding.
It's fantastic. He's a great fit for this story, which has a lot of moving parts. And I'd say if there's one thing about War of Kings that is a bit to its detriment, just reading it as one event series, is that it cares about the events that are happening. It cares about this battle has happened, and now this has happened, and now this person's been assassinated, and now this, every issue, like, there is the chess pieces are moving on the board, and that's what you get. You don't get as much as the quieter moments. Like, there's a big thing, when we referenced it earlier, where Rachel finally gets her revenge for End of Grays, and it gets like a half panel beat to like let her feel emotion on it. Yeah, and I wish there was an X-Men tie-in to this series, because War of the Kings doesn't have that. That would allow like the Starjammers to better like deal with their part in this, because they are playing the part of trying to get Lilandra back as the regent, which goes well. It works out, but it goes very poorly for Lilandra specifically.
Yeah, she gets killed, so not great.
Yeah, hey,
by a Darkhawk.
Yeah, I was about to ask when I got there. It's like, Adam doesn't know about the fraternity of Raptors, does he, Vishal?
Well, they explain it.
Yeah, Abnett and Lanning were just like, yeah, we're gonna make like 1 billion Darkhawks now. Let's do that. It ruled.
And the deal with them is what? That they are custodians of the like future of the Shi'Ar, correct? It doesn't matter who the Majestrix is. They must protect the civilization moving forward. Is there is there more to it?
I think it also has to do with the Emkron crystal, but it's been long enough that I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. I cannot tell you the
but
deep
yeah,
lore
this
of
guy
Darkhawk.
comes around and he yells at Darkhawk a bunch because Darkhawk's like, I just want to do superhero things, and he's like, you can't. You're a raptor now, and Darkhawk runs away after a while because he's a jerk.
Yeah, but a lot happens. Lilandra does get herself murder killed, which does get us a really cool moment though, where, like, from the Shi'Ar side, Vulcan's the main antagonist of this event, but if you have a protagonist from the Shi'Ar side, it's Gladiator, who, he is sworn to protect the throne, and he takes his oath very seriously, and he can do it because he believes that he can, and that's such a cool power, is that he can be Superman as long as he thinks he is Superman.
Really cool, like earlier in the event where Rocket just kind of waves a broom at him and Mantis messes with his mind, so he thinks it's a gun that can kill him.
I love that.
So they're able to hold Gladiator off for like a while before he's like, wait, that race doesn't have that kind of technology yet, and figures out that they're lying to him.
Oh, it's great. Well, he is the primary narrator for huge chunks of this, and because
he has to come around to his oath not being more important than the stewardship of this race. Like, say what you will about the Shi'Ar as an empire. It's bad that there's a Shi'Ar empire. It's also bad that the power of the Shi'Ar empire is being run by a genocidal maniac.
Right. It gets, he has all of these like amazing reveals where he has to, say, hey, I'm done with Vulcan. I'm going to try and get Lilandra back into office here, right? And then after she dies, he finishes this by becoming Majester. He is their king now, Like, it's a huge character arc over those issues. And I think especially thanks to the artwork, you really believe in the conflict that's going on in this character's mind and the exhaustion he's feeling at all of these steps in the process. There's also a Terrigen bomb.
So this all lasts pretty long.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah, Black Bolt to get all of the Kree up to evolutionary stuff, because their scientists can't actually figure it out. It's why the Inhumans were created in the first place. Because the Kree had hit an evolutionary dead end, and Vulcan thought that he could fix it, and he couldn't. He does make a Terrigen bomb, which this wouldn't be his first time. It won't be his last.
Oh.
The stakes are exactly the same as the X-Men, with like, yeah, some people are going to evolve. A lot of people will die, though.
Yeah,
and also we're lying to everyone about it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Again, having read this first did make me think that maybe the Inhumans should have known better during IVX, or at least that someone should have read a single Inhuman story before putting them in this position.
Yeah.
Because they're all kind of like this, and that's what I liked about Inhuman stories for like a while.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah, they're terrible. It's great.
They frequently talk about, hey, you know about those slaves that we have, and it's 2009?
Should we do something about that? Nah. Yeah. Well, and
then Maximus leads them in an uprising, and they're like, "We're gonna punch Maximus and not worry about the status quo. We're gonna keep going."
I do not want to go back to that Jenkins J. Lee Inhumans. I read it right when I started reading comics. I was like, yeah, this is really cool. This is cool art. I'm interested in the intrigue. Going back with any amount of self-reflection, I am going to be like, so Maximus is bad. Not disagreeing. Maximus is a bad guy. He is just leading a slave revolution, though, right? Like, maybe he's leading a slave revolution for bad reasons. On the whole, like, let's be a pragmatist here. We can deal with him later.
Well, we did not mention
ineffective Loki.
We didn't mention the story begins with the symbolic wedding between Crystal and Ronan the Accuser of all characters, which is an ongoing conversation that the two of them have as their relationship builds throughout this till the end, when Crystal is basically trying to like talk Medusa and Black Bolt out of doing this genocidal act of releasing the Terrigen bomb. That's an interesting and well written build too. Yeah, but it's well written the way that the character development is done between the two of them and until they get to the end.
And they stick together after that. Like, they're a genuinely compelling relationship until Jonathan Hickman of X-Men fame torches the relationship.
Oh.
That was in
Fantastic Four, or FF.
Yeah.
There's the one issue where Black Bolt has this internal monologue about who would dare like destroy true love like this, and then he was like, "I would because I'm a king." And then Crystal and Ronan are sad forever.
Aww.
It is sad. They break up. Listen, Crystal's young. She is on like her fourth marriage.
Yeah.
Do you like Crystal, Vishal? I know you're an Avengers guy. Do you like Crystal?
I like Crystal a lot, but pretty much entirely for the Abnett and Lanning stuff more than Avengers. Like,
okay.
I think specifically War of Kings, where like Medusa's terrible, Black Bolt's terrible, and Crystal's just like, no, I want to help these people. I want to like tell them it's going to be okay. I want to understand their struggles because we're their rulers and we should be doing that. And Medusa's like, oh, she's just doing simple statecraft. It's an act. But Crystal genuinely believes this. It's great. I love that.
No, I think it's really interesting. Like, Crystal's not been a character that I have been in general like attached to, though I found it very odd that like when they were doing the big Inhumans push, she wasn't the one they were pushing. She's always been the one they push.
Yeah.
Also, the one they were pushing can't talk.
Yeah, she's got the coolest powers too. She's the Avatar.
I do like the reveal later on that Medusa, they're like, well, you're the only one that Black Bolt talks to. And she goes, he never says anything to me. You know, like, she's always there as, like, his translator. And then there's this reveal that, like, she actually doesn't know what he's thinking. She's, like, just taking cues from facial expressions, I guess. It's a nice little touch there at the end.
I mean, I get... Black Bolt still has ears. He could go like, no, Medusa, you're wrong. 1 second. Hold on, we still have body language.
What is stopping Black Bolt from learning ASL and, like, you know, actually communicating with people.
Donnie Cates said that he knows Inhuman Sign Language and uses it a lot.
Donnie Cates pulled that.
In Death of the Inhumans, where he killed all the Inhumans except for like 5.
Okay, as much as I do want to rag on Donnie Cates, he actually did pull that from the Inhumans TV show.
Oh, that's interesting.
I feel like that deserves more ragging on.
It does. Donnie Cates is not my favorite person. However, Donnie Cates stopped Colossus and Kitty Pryde from getting married.
That's true.
He said, that's dumb. We really shouldn't do that, right?
He was right. It's an amazing
He was
decision.
absolutely right there. We should
The
make
best
fun of the
page
Inhumans
of Mark
TV show.
Guggenheim's X-Men run.
Oh. So,
Oh my gosh.
some might argue the only. Now, the battle that occurs at the very last issue of this is so epic. Like, we have Vulcan versus Black Bolt, basically just like mutilating each other. And it's so cool. Like, it's this vicious fist fight, screaming, Crystal's trying to stop the Terrigen bomb. It does go off, but without the agent that would actually release Terrigen, and escapes with Lockjaw, but can't escape with Black Bolt. It's a really great climax to the story. It's cool.
It rips a hole in space several parsecs long,
Yes.
which is very...
That'll get followed up on
Yeah.
in Realm of Kings.
Oh yeah, and they don't leave it go. And in fact, like, if people remember the Vulcan issue of Hickman's X-Men, like, that's where he is at the start of that. He's floating through that weird rip in space-time into the Cancerverse. Also where Black Bolt is when Hickman picks up on that in FF.
Following up.
Here's the thing. War of Kings may not be a good X-Men story, because I think as an X-Men story, it's fine. It's got some X-Men stuff, but its biggest X-Men thing is Vulcan. Who cares?
Yeah, and it rushes through all the X-Men beats because it's not interested in them.
It is a freaking cool story, and I do like it a lot.
I think we talked about this a little bit as we were planning this episode, but it does have enough of, the Imperial Guard, the Shi'Ar, they are X-Men characters. You know what I mean? They originated in X-Men. I think that even though we don't get a lot of love for, like you mentioned, the climax with Rachel finally getting to take out one of the she doesn't even take out the entire Shi'Ar Death Commando team, but she does take out like the vulture looking dude after he
The main one.
after he impales what's his name, the gladiator's leg with like his spear or something. Like, it's pretty violent. Like, you're right, those beats are very, very quick and not, they're not the bulk of the story, but I don't know. I think there's enough here to qualify it as X-Men, and I think it's better than anything we talked about today.
I think it's head and shoulders above a lot of stuff we talked about today. I'm going to throw out a couple of points on our list. I think that War of Kings is better than a story that my cousin said he wanted to read all of and every tie-in to today, and I told him, Bud, you just read House of X. You really do not want to jump into House of M. They are not connected. You will not enjoy this. And he said, no, I've got to know what happens. I'm like,
do you?
I can't stop you from reading comics that are challenging. Please, no one please read every issue of House of M and all of the tie-ins.
God. Oh, I might be doing that soon.
Oh, Vishal, buddy. That's at 139. I do think this is better than House of M.
Way better.
My question is it better than Uncanny X-Men 466 to 468 End of Greys?
As someone who is not a huge Rachel fan, I think it is. But also, it is... The Rachel portions of this story are significantly worse, because they don't have Chris Bachalo drawing, and Paul Pelletier, as good as he is, can't draw Chris Bachalo's Murder Death Squad as well.
Because I think if I'm going to put a cap on this, like a ceiling for me personally, it's probably For me personally, it's probably at 116 Excalibur, 61 Truth and Consequences. That's the one that's mostly splash pages of Rachel fighting Galactus in space.
I'm not gonna put this above Inferno at 118.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't put it above Inferno there.
We also have Inferno lower than other people would.
Yeah, I don't think this is also as...
I think it is better than Necrotia, personally.
Which is at 122. And I would agree with Vishal from if we're going event to event to event, yeah, I think this is better than Necrotia.
Yeah, I can see that. I might draw the line at 121 though. We've got X-Men Life Lessons at 121, which is that fantastic standalone John Paul Leon illustrated sort of, feel good PSA comic, but that is a very good X-Men story. Whereas this, for all of its quality,
the best PSA comic that's ever existed. Yeah.
Right.
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with putting in between those two. Vishal, have you read this random PSA comic that's actually good?
I haven't, but I have read X Factor number 27 Gifts, and I do think it's better than War of Kings, so I'll live.
Yeah. No, see, that's right. That's our new number 122. A good showing for a story that involves a lot of X-Men things, but may or not be an X-Men story. But we don't really care because we got to hang out with our buddy Vishal. And we got to do that again thanks to Derek McElroy. I'm going to re-say his name. We got to do that thanks to Derek McElroy. If you want to be like Derek, you can go to... patreon.com/comicsxf. It supports the stuff that Vishal does every week as one of our editors and one of our writers. Vishal, are you right? Do you have any beats right now? You're doing the wrestle stuff.
I'm doing the wrestle stuff right now. When Al Ewing and Rom V's Venom starts.
That's right. We're writing the first issue together.
That.
That's right. I'm gonna be.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm excited. I'm actually very excited about talking about Venom, which is a weird sentence for me to say.
It's going to be great, though. It's got... Oh, they're so good.
No, I'm very excited about those two on Venom, and then Al Ewing gracefully bowing out probably within the first 8 issues and letting Ron V just do his thing.
Probably.
I wouldn't complain.
I love Al Ewing. I'm just guessing here.
They did say that Al Ewing's writing all the Eddie Brock stuff, and Ron V is writing all the kid stuff.
Oh, yeah. Here's the thing, Adam. Our listeners may not know about Venom right now. Eddie Brock is the king of the symbiotes in space, and is floating around in space being the king of all symbiotes and helping symbiotes, not be evil. Anyway, his kid is doing a Spawn cosplay and being Venom on Earth.
This sounds fun.
Literally, he's Venom, but has chains wrapped around his arms.
Well, because kids love chains.
I gotta read this.
Kids do love chains.
Sounds great.
It's coming out soon, and it's going to be very exciting. But yeah, Vishal, you're doing that. You're doing the stuff over at Comic Book Herald, where you are part of a team that is putting together some excellent work that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
And what else you got going on?
And I recently was on an episode of Cerebro talking about my gun boy Cable. He's big. He's got guns. I like him a lot. Also has the glowy eye. Can't forget the glowy eye.
You know what? You can't forget the glowy eye. Art Adams worked really hard to make glowy eyes a thing that superheroes have, and we need to respect that.
It's true.
Credit where it's due.
Yeah, I think that's all I've got.
Vishal, if people want to find you
online,
where should they go?
You can find me at vgola87. I tweet sporadically about video games, wrestling, and comics.
Nice.
Maybe sports sometimes if my teams do good.
And Adam, how about yourself?
You guys can always follow me on Twitter at Arthur Stacy. And Zach, what are we talking about next week?
Next week, we're going to talk about Mutant X.
The show?
We're talking about Mutant X, Adam. That's all I can say.
Okay.
Have fun with that.
A lot of people like Mutant X. I am not those people.
I haven't read it, so that was genuine. I hope you have fun with it.
I don't know what it is. We're going to find out.
Adam hasn't read it. Here's the thing. I always make sure that I have fun. with these episodes. So that's really what's important. But hey, until then, folks, this has been Dial Me Adam. We hope you survive.